This week, I'm all by myself as Jamie is taking a break on a beach. We will talk about Nvidia's GTC conference where Jensen Huang actually launched several new products and he talked about the newer Blackwell Ultra chips, new networking chips, new models, reasoning models, humanoid foundational data models, etc. We will also talk about OpenAI's new audio models, in terms of the text to speech and the speech to text. And we'll also talk about the Mistral Small 3.1. Stay tuned. We'll talk about these in detail after a quick intro. Greetings. Welcome to the AI Files podcast. If you're looking to stay up to date on the AI, this is the podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain. I'm the director of AI at Microsoft, and I'm your co-host.
Hello, everybody. Jamie Basilico, as you know already. I'm the other co-host here for the AI Files. My day job is a data and AI technical specialist and architect. And as a reminder, please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, so the views and opinions expressed by myself and Shadab are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft.
So let's talk about this week with a quote of Jensen Huang. So actually this week, the past week was Nvidia's GTC conference, which is basically GPU technical conference, as they call it, GTC. And this week in that conference, the first time they had actually first ever quantum day, which was, and they had a panel where, it's like about where we are and where we are headed kind of panel. And Jensen Huang actually, he said at the opening of this quantum computing panel, he said, this is the first event in history where a company CEO invites all of the guests to explain why he was wrong, unquote. So funny thing, essentially what had happened was that Jensen Huang at the beginning of this year in January, he cast a doubt on the whole quantum computing, and he said that this is at least 20 years away from quantum computing being very useful. And that remarks, it actually, well, many of the industry veterans might agree that yes, quantum computing is far away, but there has been actually a lot of rapid progress, and there are a lot of companies who are solely focused on quantum computing. And remarks coming from leader like Wang actually created a lot of flutter in the market, and they sent the stocks in that particular segment of quantum computing companies less by 60%. And Huang even actually joked. He said that how could a quantum computer company be even public, right? I mean, for him, it's such a far away, I don't know if it's far-fetched idea, but it's so far away right now. And within that 3 months, coming from that perspective, now having a quantum computing panel for the first time ever at the GTC conference is a remarkable turnaround. And he seems like, I would say, kind of like repenting on that comment that, okay, yeah, it wasn't a great idea, because there has been a lot of progress, honestly. In fact, just last month, Microsoft actually announced Majorana 1, that new breakthrough computing chip based on the topological conductors, which can actually make the quantum computing um, essentially in years, not in the decades. So, remarkable turnaround, and I think it is also reflected that even Nvidia is now actually going deeper into the quantum computing. He actually announced they'll probably open a new dedicated research lab in Boston, which could become as well be the world's largest quantum computing lab. So, good turnaround from there. Let's head into some of the news before we go into the launches. So this week, actually, Meta AI is now heading to European Union and UK as well. This chatbot-like tool, it's going to be rolled out across Meta's portfolio of social platforms, although with limitations. Of course, not all the features will be available in the European Union, and like there has been a tussle between Meta and the European Union, particularly about the privacy and the data protection and things like that. And in fact, Zuckerberg actually, he wrote lengthy article, a blog actually many months ago about Europe's falling behind in AI because of too much stringent AI regulations and things like that. But anyway, I think they are heading to the European Union with some limitations, of course. And in UK, which is actually technically not part of the European Union, the Meta will also actually bring that some of the features in the WhatsApp. So far, they were limited rather to the other social media platforms from the Meta. In the other news, Claude can finally now search the web. Yeah, it seems like unbelievable, but yes, it is. The Claude can actually now search the web because it is unbelievable that it wasn't already there. Um, ChatGPT already does that. Many of the other AI models and the apps also actually provide that web functionality, but Claude did not. Now it can actually search as well as provide direct citations so you can easily fact check the sources. Now let's talk about some of the launches this week. This week was again busy, and then let's talk about a launch from Stability. The company that was founded by Maad Mushtaq, it ran into actually some lot of financial troubles. The CEO and the co-founder Maad Mushtaq finally left the company. They got a new CEO. They got James Cameron actually joined the board as well, and it's a company that has been developing some really good innovative solutions in the media side of things particularly. So they actually launched something called Stable Virtual Camera, which is in the research preview right now. This is actually a multi-view diffusion model, which transforms the 2D images into immersive 3D videos. So what happens is that with this virtual camera, let's say you show an input image and then you kind of create a path of, let's say, the camera in it could be around that whole image, it could be in some elliptical orbit, and then as the camera moves, the perspective of that image will change with the depth, so of course it will look like a 3D image. So for example, in some of the examples they have already actually shown, there is a telephone booth, the red telephone booth, and then you can actually go around it and show that telephone booth, which was a single 2D image, turn into a 3D view of that telephone booth, which shows, around it, as well as, some additional aspects on the top of that image as well. So looks pretty good, actually. Looks pretty good. Of course, there are some limitations in terms of, it has some, like some of the complex human movements as well as some, the dynamic things like water movement, etc. are not very well rendered, but it is still pretty impressive. And it is however a research preview project, so it will take a little bit more time to actually stabilize, but it's pretty good feature. All right, let's talk about the Nvidia GTC conference now, where we had like multiple announcements coming through. Let's start with, first of all, this is the GPU technology conference. It started since 2009, and it has featured a lot of innovations from Nvidia. And Nvidia does a lot of things, right? They have chips, they have the frameworks, they have the solution, they have the models also, they have the humanoid robotics models as well. So tons of things, right? Personal computer, AI, some supercomputer, things like that. They have a ton of things. They have data center solutions as well. So some of the things that they announced actually was like Blackwell Ultra. So Blackwell is already in full production. It's their cutting edge chip. It delivers 40 times the performance of the previous version, which is Hopper. And NVIDIA said its next GPU, which is called Blackwell Ultra, will be available in the second half of this year. And the new GPU features larger memory than its current generation, which enables it to support larger AI models. But it doesn't stop there. He also talked about the Vera Rubin, and it is the next generation NVIDIA's Rubin Ultra GPU and their Vera CPU architecture for efficient data center. And that system together, that GPU and the CPU architecture system, that actually allows that Rubin chips and servers to offer improved speeds, especially in the data transfers between chips. And this is a key factor for the efficient operation of a fast AI system that require multiple chips. And pairing that with NVIDIA's custom design processor Vera, this new Vera Rubin is expected to outperform the company's Blackwell architecture. Vera Rubin will be actually released in the second half of 2026, followed by the launch of Vera Rubin Ultra in 2027. He also talked about the Feynman architecture, which is named after Richard Feynman. By the way, a lot of their products are actually named after these scientists and mathematicians like Richard Feynman and Vera. Vera is, I think, an astronomer. Rubin is, I believe, another mathematician, if I'm not wrong. And Hopper is named after Grace Hopper, of course, one of the pioneering women computing actually genius. They also have Ada Lovelace system as well. Anyway, so the Feynman architecture is scheduled for release in 2028, and he talked about that we're going to get into a rhythm of an annual kind of launches. Like every year we'll bring out new GPUs, CPUs, new architecture framework, things like that. So get into an annual kind of rhythm. They also actually talked about the DGX personal AI supercomputer, and this is actually powered by the Blackwell Ultra chips, which is designed to assist developers in inferencing large models on the desktop. And this computer will be made by the companies like Dell, Lenovo, HP, and it of course is going to compete against the top end Macs, right? So this is considered like a personal AI supercomputer in which you can do a lot of AI work and the graphical editing and things like that. That's all. The other thing that they talked about is a Spectrum X and Quantum X networking chips. This is the NVIDIA's new silicon photonics networking chips that will enable AI factories to connect millions of GPUs across various sites while drastically reducing the energy consumption. And to do that, you need to have this tightly integrated photonics, which is networking technology, and it rely on transmitting data using light rather than electrical signals into the accelerating computer infrastructure. And to enable these AI factories to connect millions of GPUs and while reducing energy consumption and operational costs, these photonics networking switches, they actually fuse electronic circuits and optical communications together. And that's how the efficiency is generated. And a lot of promise. The photonics switches that integrate optics innovations with 4 times fewer lasers to deliver 3.5 times more power efficiency and 63x greater signal integrity. Also, 10x better network resiliency at scale and 1.3 times faster deployment compared with traditional methods. Well, sounds like a huge gain there. And we'll see how that turns out, but sounds like it's going to make the AI data centers very efficient. By the way, these Quantum X photonic chips are expected to be available later this year, not too far in the future, and that will be followed by the launch of Spectrum X chips, which will be in 2026. GTC also had a launch of Dynamo software, a software which NVIDIA released for free, and it is intended to speed up the process of reasoning, in which AI models think through an answer to a question in multiple steps, right? The reasoning models, like a chain of thought processing. Now, this Dynamo is a high throughput, low latency, open source inference serving framework to deploy the generative AI and reasoning models in large-scale distributed environments. And it essentially, when you're deploying these reasoning models over a large infrastructure of the GPUs, connected infrastructure of the GPUs, you need a framework to make sure that they're performing at their best. So this framework actually allows that. It boosts the number of requests served by up to 30x when running the open source DeepSeek R1 models on NVIDIA Blackwell. So it it promises that kind of efficiency gain when particularly dealing with reasoning. And remember, reasoning models can consume a lot of inference and can take a long time. So there is definitely a lot of interest in accelerating that and bringing the low latency to the reasoning model. And NVIDIA Dynamo is compatible with other open source tools like PyTorch and bunch of others. Agentic AI models, by the way. So NVIDIA also has their Nematron reasoning family, which is based on Llama. So it's actually NVIDIA Llama Nematron reasoning uh, family, and it delivers the AI reasoning capabilities. They have enhanced the reasoning model family during post training to improve multi step math, coding, reasoning, and complex decision making. They also talked about the Isaac Groot N1. And this is very interesting. This is actually it is a foundational model for humanoid robots, and it has a dual system for both the fast and slow thinking. And if you remember that, Daniel Kahneman's very famous seminal book, you know, Thinking Slow and Fast, it's based on something like that, right? This dual system. It it has a it is inspired by the principles of human cognition. So system one is a fast thinking action model, like more new intuitive, like something reflexive, and it mirrors like human reflexes or intuition. System two is a slow thinking model for deliberate, methodical, brainstorming kind of decision making. So what it does is this model actually uses the system two model system to take the images, using the vision language model abilities, and then understand what is around it, and it analyzes it, and then it passes on to the findings to the system one, which is essentially trained on the human demonstration data and a lot of synthetic data from NVIDIA's Omniverse platform, and it is geared towards doing the actions efficiently. And like actions like grasping or moving objects with one or both arms or transferring and things like that. So it can easily generalize the tasks using these two systems. And there are some demo videos from NVIDIA's where two robots are working together on a line and passing on the objects, and one is sorting and the other is passing on things like that. So this model is going to allow the robotics to actually have more capabilities without having to train everything, right? So this is getting into a little bit more of autonomous kind of capabilities, I think. It will be very interesting because Huang also talked about the opportunity here. He said that there will be the world is going to see at least 50 million workers short, okay, by the end of this decade. So this is the next $10 trillion industry in his view, and that's why the Nvidia is actually doubling down on this space as well. By the way, they also announced a collaboration with Google DeepMind and Disney Research to develop Newton, which is an open source physics engine that lets robots learn how to handle complex tasks with greater precision. By the way, Disney has actually physics engine, and they are interested in it because they develop actually a lot of like droid kind of experience and behavior they need to demonstrate. Like Star Wars inspired droids, etc. In fact, on the stage, they were actually joined by this droid, which very very cute looking Star Wars inspired droid. So there is, I think, tons of interesting work, that between the AI and the robotics, that fusion has started occurring. Actually, the AI is going to become the operating system of the robotics. So it's going to be very interesting, scary, of course, as well, but also very, very interesting. Finally, these barriers between the two worlds is, between the application and the robotics is going to actually finally start merging. Anyway, let's move on. We also had a launch from Mistral Small 3.1, and this is the best model in its waist class as per them. So this is built on the Mistral Small 3, which is a new model, and it has improved text performance, multimodal understanding, by the way, and an expanded context window of up to 128,000 tokens. And this model already outperforms models like Gemma 3, which was recently launched, and GPT-4 or Mini, while delivering the inference speeds of 150 tokens per second. Pretty impressive. It is released under an Apache 2.0 license, so it's available to download on the Hugging Face. You can try it out, and it's of course targeted towards the computing on the devices. You can It's pretty lightweight. It can run actually on a single RTX 4090 or a Mac with 32 GB RAM. So it is pretty, I would say, edge oriented. um, it has fast response. It is ideal for virtual assistants and applications where you want quick and accurate response. It also has low latency. It also can be fine tuned. So Mistral Small 3.1 can be fine tuned to specialize in specific domains, like you can do it for legal or medical or technical or scientific purpose. Um, by the way, these small models have been actually taken by a lot of companies and developed fine-tuned solution, and to that effect that Mistral was very interested in launching that and making that available as fine-tuning as well, so that the other companies can develop the fine-tuned models and take it to the market. There are actually a lot of things that you can do with these small models, particularly if it has multimodal understanding. Even like document verification, diagnostics on device, image processing, visual inspection for quality checks, object detection in security system. The image based, you don't have to send all that pictures to the cloud and to get that inference done. You can do that on the device. You can have the image based customer support and general purpose assistance. So there's tons of actually use cases for the small language models which are in the enterprise domain, and that's what is happening. You can see a lot of companies like Google has Gemma, Microsoft has Phi, and Mistral also has these small models. So there's a lot of companies with the small models, and there's a good future of small models as well. By the way, OpenAI also launched new audio models. In the meantime, it is actually the new audio models. So they used to have something called Whisper APIs, Whisper models, which is primarily the model that they have had so far. It was launched in 2022. It is good, but it also is known to have some hallucinations. It does introduce some imagined words and paragraphs, etc. So the word error rate, which is essentially the number of the inaccurate, I would say, the inaccurate identification of the words into a stream of words when you're transcribing, is what's called word error rate. So it actually it had a good amount of word error rate. But these new models, which are based on the GPT-4o architecture, they actually are extensively pre-trained on specialized audio-centric data sets. So these new models are supposedly much better. They have a comparative chart that OpenAI has released, which actually compares it against a Whisper as well as some of the other comparative models like Nova and some of them from Google. It works pretty well compared to them, and the accuracy is better, the latency is low, and it has better language recognition. So compared to the original Whisper models, and the price is same. It is same price as Whisper. In fact, the Mini is actually half the price. So that is for the speech to text. It's called GPT-4o Transcribe and GPT-4o Mini Transcribe for the speech to text. For the text to speech, it's only mini model right now. It's a GPT-4o Mini TTS model. It has better steerability. So what happens is that not only you can tell these model what to speak, you can also say how to speak, right? You have a better steerability in terms of, you can tell that, okay, if there is a mistake or an error, you can make it sound more apologetic, for example. So you can control a lot of voice nuances with these models. So that's why this can actually pass on a lot of instructions to the model as well, and it costs just 1 cent. So pretty good new features and models. And this is particularly because Sam Altman has already talked about this, that the one of the biggest way that we're going to be interacting with the AI in the future is going to be voice. It's not the text really. And right now, a lot of focus is on the text, but the voice is going to be the most comfortable model to actually interact with the AI. And that's why they are also actually focusing a lot on the AI. They have the GPT-4 real time, which is basically speech to speech model. Okay, so in the speech to speech model, it's directly conversing speech to speech. But in this case, you can have multi-step kind of a process. Like you can actually take an input from a, let's say, an audience or a user, which will translate it into speech to text, and then the text goes to the model, and then generate an output, and then from there that text output, what is generated, is then going to be converted again to the speech. So there could be multiple steps there, which might increase some latency there. However, you have more flexibility, right? You, because you can mix and match different models. You can, unlike the speech to speech just one step model, here now you have the it's more modular. You can control it better. It may be a little bit more latency, but it may give you more flexibility. Okay, and one of the last item for this week is a Microsoft Azure AI Foundry. They have actually created, they have introduced a model context protocol in the Azure AI Foundry. Model context protocol, or the MCP, was actually launched. It's an open standard. It is designed to seamlessly connect the AI assistants with diverse data sources to enable the context aware, right? So consider it like a RAG, right, for the AI assistants. And the MCP allows the AI application RAG, but it's like an open protocol, right? So it's not like a proprietary protocol for the RAG. So this MCP allows the applications to intelligently retrieve, process, and leverage information across the private document repositories as well as the public web sources, significantly enhancing the functionality. And this was actually launched by Anthropic. So, Anthropic actually made that open standard. And so it primarily, like Anthropic has been using it, but others have also started adopting, including now the Microsoft has also taken this and made the Azure AI Foundry compatible with that. So today you can actually use that within the Azure AI agent service. Like essentially it combined the Azure AI agent service and gives it the knowledge retrieval from public and other private data sources, which includes the real-time web data using grounding with Bing search or internal private data, etc. So if you are using the Anthropic, let's say the Claude desktop, you can actually use the model context protocol and use the Azure AI Foundry modules as well as part of that. Okay, and you can actually in the future you'll be able to integrate sources like SharePoint and Fabric, etc. as well, including the like internal private data with Azure AI Search as well. So a lot of these Microsoft sources you can now start integrating using the MCP as well in your application. Currently, it works with the Cloud Desktop, but of course, any other application which supports the MCP would be able to use these as well. Okay. With that, I think it's a short episode for the week. We will catch up soon next week again. Until then, bye bye.